Hey everyone, my name is Louis. I'm one of the co-founders of Spock, a general purpose assistant that helps companies move faster. I'm joined by my co-founder Tertius.
Hey everyone, glad to be here. What a privilege. Yeah, looking forward to this session. This is going to be valuable. It's like getting real, getting raw, getting into the thick of things about AI.
I agree. And I think the big idea behind today's session is, Tertius and I have spent a lot of time, I think, working with companies, but speaking to leadership, being part of these organizations, going through change. And we've never seen more change than today with AI.
This is a pivotal moment, seminal moment, not just for technology, but for humanity. And how lucky are we, how privileged are we to experience this firsthand? And I think, Louis, one of the big things, being immersed in this technology for the last few years, back and forth from the US and South Africa and Africa, what we pick up is fear. And I think, especially in the landscape, we're in South Africa that has probably one of the highest youth unemployment rates in the world. Now suddenly we've getting this technology, there's a lot of fear mongering going on where it's like AI is going to take your job. But is that the reality? Is that the danger? That's the fear. That's what we hear from industry.
And it's an interesting question. One we hear so often. And I think the first thing I always tell people to do is, when you hear these big sweeping statements from the big tech CEOs about mass job replacement and all of these things, just have a look at when they're raising funding. Those two are always very closely aligned. One very real example is the CEO of Anthropic, Dario, made quite a big statement that, I might get the numbers wrong, but something like 90% of all programmers or 90% of all code will be AI written. And this was by today. We've not seen that at all, right? So maybe just a lot of the stuff we hear is maybe a little bit overblown, in all honesty. I think we're very big fans of human in the loop, empowering the humans with AI, not necessarily shooting straight for how can we replace people, because in all honesty, the AI on the technical level just isn't quite there yet.
But there's two sides of it. There's the human factor and the machine factor. And I want to make a t-shirt that says the future is symbiotic, this man and machine. So, yes, this is a fundamental shift in how we do things. It's becoming a bedrock. It's not just another tech. So let's just stand still maybe at the tech, the machine part of this. It has a threat, but for whom does it threaten? Where does that lie?
Yeah, so actually, we were recently at a conference where they actually asked a similar question. Well, they asked which jobs, literally specific jobs, titles essentially, are most in danger, and which new jobs will be created. And I think that's at the root of it. That's people just want certainty. Is my job title safe, right? And the statement there was, maybe just reframe it from into one of problems, into the view of problems. In other words, what problems can AI solve right now? Because if they can solve certain problems really well right now, then yes, there is a big chance for not necessarily replacement, but mass disruption. So if you're constantly doing the same job over and over in customer success, then that's the first place AI is kind of going. But the other statement I tell people is, look at what potential problems AI creates into the future, because that's very much where you usually find opportunity. And that is, AI will probably cause less human-to-human interaction. We might lose that connection with other people. So there's opportunity. What does that look like? I'm not sure, but there's opportunity there.
Definitely. And I think history teaches us that, if you can look through history and humanity and society, there's these revolutions, and the economic revolution, industrial revolution, the Renaissance. Every time there's this fear of there's something we don't really know. And, that's human condition. We fear the things we don't fully understand. And this is just a lot more complex than some of the previous things, but it's still the human condition. So I'm excited. For me, it's more an empowering moment than being fearful. Yes, caution to the wind. Obviously, technology through the ages has been used, with the emphasis on used, to destroy and bring destruction and, fuel greed more. That is true. But the opposite is also true. If we are so special as we think, and I do believe humans are very special, then for me, it's more a moment in time where I think I'm very excited about the acceleration of innovation, which I personally believe was more on a decline. So I see new things, with urbanization and people moving from farms into cities. There was already this example of new jobs that we don't even had like an idea of how these jobs would look like was created. So now I think it's just going to be accelerated.
Well, I mean, we're a living example, right? 200 years ago, there wasn't a job title tech founder. You're not a tech founder, right? And I think the big thing to always keep in mind is the best way to predict the future is study the past. And we've been through multiple revolutions. And that's the best way to look at the current one we're going through, is what happened in the previous revolutions. Yes, there was job displacement, but the end result was a net gain.
So if the displacement is, it's displaced, but what's the real dangers thing? If you think Terminator, we've been primed through Hollywood and certain narratives, like we need to be afraid of this artificial intelligence. But at the end of the day, it's just like, it's an algorithm. It's math. What's the danger actually there?
Yeah, we've actually briefly spoken about this internally a couple of times, and I think, the big thing we always say was the big story that's always told is the Terminator, the Skynet, right? Skynet's coming for us all, but we've even seen little bits of this already. But I think one of the biggest dangers in AI is centralized AI and regulatory capture. To expand on that just a little bit, if the concentration of power, if that group gets too small, you've got a very small group of individuals essentially dictating how these models are built, what moral frameworks these models follow. Anyone using these models through any assistant, I won't name any names, but will naturally be influenced by how these models are built, the decisions that a small group of people made. So for me, the biggest worry and the biggest danger in AI is the centralization. If these people, if you've got the concentration of power and AI starts becoming optimized for usage, not truth, in other words, keep you in front of a screen, like what social media did. If AI starts going down that path, I think that's the real danger.
Okay. So I mean, there are these apocalyptic type of big stuff that might, be in the horizon, but let's make it more, closer to today. I saw there was this restaurant group that started using AI in enterprise with an end-to-end type of idea of automating things. And this one agent ordered 18,000 waters for this one person or something like that. I think that's sometimes actually more of a danger. It's just having more orders on what I actually wanted to order.
Yeah, well, I think you touched on something very important. And if you've used AI in your company, you've probably experienced some level of this. At the end of the day, they're hallucination machines, right? So it's not deterministic. It's not going to be a 1 or a 0. It's probabilistic. So it's probably going to get everything right, but then you do have those occasions where they make mistakes. Order 18,000. There's also a story where I can't remember what car manufacturer it was in the US. It must have been Ford. But anyway, then they had this chatbot. And then someone came onto this AI chatbot, which was powered by one of the AI models, and essentially convinced the model to give him a car. And he actually got the car because I think it was Ford, but they said, no, we can't obviously honor that. It's an AI. But they said, well, hold on. This is on your website. This is official. So I think in the not just short term, but right now, yes, I think there's a serious challenge, and we see it already with just AI making simple mistakes in enterprise, which is, again, why our philosophy of human in the loop is so important now.
But Lou, let's get a bit more serious. One of the top uses for AI 2025 is companionship and therapy. And we've heard about, people committing suicide. But that, I think that's a testament to something that's a human condition. It's maybe accelerated by technology in certain ways, but I think it's more testifies to the human condition using technology in a way that's not conducive and that's not complementary to, humans thriving. So I think we should not just carte blanche it to artificial intelligence, but actually, our critical thinking and understanding as holistic human beings, understand where we are at and grow in that. Not just like AI is the be all and end all for everything. But the fact that companionship and therapy is the number one use, it can be positive, but it also says a lot about people, in a sense.
I think one of the very real dangers right now is outsourcing your thinking, right? I mean, that's when you start heading down a very dangerous road where, the AI is driving your life. You're not using it to drive your own life. So you're outsourcing your decisions, whether it is in work, the proposal you're sending to a client, whatever it may be. You still are the final gatekeeper there. You still need to take responsibility for the work the AI has created for you. You're the conductor using these tools. And I think that is, as we just mentioned, one of the dangers of AI is we outsource our responsibility to the AI. But you can't do that, right? Someone has to hold the responsibility. And if we just keep shifting that around, or if companies or individuals in companies solely rely on these AI systems, that is a big danger to the organization, which is why we've seen this ourselves in working with companies. You have to be very systematic, keep it simple, and make sure to grab the lowest hanging fruit before you start getting too complicated automation, because that's where mistakes come, and that is where money's lost.
And let's get closer to something that we are very passionate about, is education. I mean, I've got teenagers in the house. I know you're very passionate about education, but AI and education. Is AI a threat to education, or is AI actually just exposing a broken system in education?
One of the most important questions, I think, regarding AI at the moment, I would almost take a step back and say AI is the best thing that's ever happened to education. AI is a massive threat to centralized institutions. Think universities. I almost feel like you have to look at schools and universities in a different light.
It's a technology at scale that's forcing these institutions to rethink everything.
Yes. And I think, that's essentially the beauty of free markets, is competition. You can't just keep an entrenched position as these institutions have for hundreds of years. I'm very glad they have competition. Very, very glad, because it forces them to innovate, understand the reality, build a better product, which is what they teach, how they teach, etc. I have a very controversial opinion that I don't think undergraduate degrees and master's degrees will either won't exist or really won't carry any weight in 5 to 10 years from now. Because I think PhDs are still important, because you learn from a human. You're learning underneath a professor. You're contributing novel ideas, novel concepts to the field. But undergrad and masters, I mean, I think that type of education will shift largely back to the individual. And now they have AI to help them.
Now, I mean, last night I had a discussion with a first-year student about this that's very anti-using AI in their discipline and field. But if I think about my own children, this has empowered them tremendously in their critical thinking. So it's not, the argument last night was like, this is going to make you lazy. But I've experienced the opposite, the antithesis of what certain people are saying. And then I encountered these mindsets, and I'm like, but have you used it? How did you use it? How do you think about AI? And we spoke about this, a week ago, that, all thumbs are fingers, but not all fingers are thumbs. Like, AI is not ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a small segment and part of the whole AI or machine learning, and now we're going into world models, etc. There's so much more coming. So maybe, and again, coming back to the futurist symbiotic, the way we think about education and this next era, we should engage fully with AI. And then maybe we can make these sweeping, then it will not be sweeping statements, but more informed statements. But how does it look like maybe, let's say, high school? Let's move from university to high school. What do you think? How can AI be?
Well, one thing, maybe before I get to that, is just maybe to paint a picture. Imagine when the calculator was released, right? And every academic institution said, no, this is going to make our students lazy. They no longer have to do logs by hand. Now they can just use a calculator. So we're going to ban calculators. So they then deny how many generations of students the use of new technology, which allows them to abstract the level and work on higher order problems, right? Imagine that was the case. In hindsight, we would be sitting here saying that was the most ridiculous decision ever. Why would you ban a calculator? It just helps you move quicker, helps you achieve more. I suspect it's going to be very similar with AI. Right now, we're kind of in the middle of it, and it's maybe tough to take a step back. But I think in 10 years, if we look back, it's going to be similar. I think we would be saying, yes, imagine if they had actually banned that. Like, how silly is that? That's ridiculous. You're just putting back 2 generations of students or a generation from moving faster, using the tools available.
That's my experience sometimes, and not being, maybe seeing the integrity or the symmetry of the arguments. Like, I'm a purist academic. I'm not going to use AI. And then walking from that session, getting into my car and using Google Maps to find my way. Because, what's the difference? So we become we nitpick the areas where we allow AI when it's convenient or not convenient, and sometimes it's more ideological than being pragmatic about it. But I do think, as any kind of person of influence, which teachers and professors are, is to engage, to do research, is to explore this new universe that's before us.
Well, and we see it, right? We're actually working with a professor right now who's incredibly pro AI. He's an incredible he's an incredible guy in terms of how he's approaching teaching his kids, having them buy in and use AI and his different approach. And it's a good example of just taking a step back, trying to remove yourself from almost an emotional point of view, just thinking from first principles. All right, this technology is here. It's obviously incredible. This is the dumbest AI will ever be, so it's only going to get better. So let's, from that position, now build my curriculum, my method of teaching. Let's go that route instead of just immediately saying, no, this is anti what I believe. Just for a second, take a step back and just think about it just from first principles.
How cool. Just change your mindset for a moment. That we live in a time and age where now suddenly anything is possible. It's not like we're regurgitating the same thing over and over, lesson plan or curriculum, but we can shift and change around everything. Suddenly we become, it's almost like I feel the exploring, adventurous spirit is almost called out of humans again. And I know sometimes it's uncomfortable, yes, but just think about what is possible. And it starts with a mindset.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of what we've briefly kind of touched on and discussed is these are questions we get when we work with companies, when we work with people around AI. I think there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of question marks, but a lot of optimism, a lot of enthusiasm. And we want to kind of contextualize as much as possible of that. And I think the big driving force behind, why we started Spock was to solve for this, is to bring AI to everyone, to make it simple, to make it accessible, and to give everyone a platform they can use in their day-to-day. But truth be told, specifically businesses, really to help these companies, help individuals with work, productivity.
Louis, I think you mentioned way back in the beginning of this journey, we had this mantra, and it still has, it's not, we're not in love with the solution, we're in love with the problem, understanding the problem. It's not like we're bringing AI and say AI is the solution, but it's like, but what's the problem and how can AI solve for that? And maybe reverse engineering it from there. So for us, addressing these concerns, understanding the fear, the human in the loop is essential for us at Spock. And how do we solve for that?
100%. And I think that's essentially what we're doing our entire day. Every day is speaking to people, understanding what they want, need, and solving for that, helping them solve for that. And that's essentially the roadmap of Spock, is let's speak to the people who want to use AI but aren't sure where to start. And let's start from that as of, kickoff point and build from there. And that's where we start.
Louis, the technology in itself is already very complex. Now, making it more complex, using it, that's like defeating the object of the exercise here, it's counterproductive. So I think the first thing we start off with is how do we simplify AI for everyday use, especially in enterprise, to make things more efficient.
And I mean, one of the big questions, points of concerns, points of confusion we heard was, which AI do I use? What model do I pick when? Is it 4.0, 04, 2.5? Why is there a difference and why are there so many? And I think that was probably one of the biggest things we saw immediately was companies, individuals, people who just want to use the best technology don't know where to start because there's too much out there. So I think that's essentially where the first pillar of the foundation of Spock was born, was we need to build AI that's not only incredibly powerful, but simple. Simple, easy to use, whether for an individual or a company. They don't need to worry about which model's going where. We kind of handle that on the back end. We have our own multi-model framework. We can maybe touch on that in a second. But the point is, when you're using Spock, you're always getting the very best AIs out there.
I think that's one of the things that was very clear for us, spending a lot of time in Silicon Valley at ground zero of AI, where, with these AI labs, coming from a South African context. I think to simplify things was very obvious. We need to make this a lot more simpler. But I think, Louis, looking at enterprise, the other two pillars is security and value. It is actually very expensive, but you want to use it at scale in deploying it in your company, but you also want it to be very, very secure. How important is that, especially for South African or African context?
Well, there's essentially two big topics when it comes to security, right? It's the first one is POPIA. We hear that all the time. Every company we speak to, and rightly so, it is a major point of concern. Am I POPIA compliant by using Copilot or ChatGPT? Doesn't matter. Am I POPIA compliant? That's the big one. The second one, which is, in my opinion, the most important one, is this company training on my data? If I upload files, confidential company information, is that going into the public?
So what does that mean? If I uploaded, let's say I'm American, I've uploaded all my tax, IRS, all my details in ChatGPT in the free version, and the model's been trained on that, there's a possibility that if I ask what's Louis' IRS, details, that's in public domain now.
Essentially, yes. I mean, if it's free, you're the product.
Yeah.
That has never been more true than it is today of AI. And I think the first thing we always tell companies when we start engaging with them in the first place is, look, regardless of what happens moving forward, the very first thing you must do is just have some kind of a policy in place to make sure that your employees are not uploading confidential company information into a free version of any AI. Because if it's free, they're most likely training on your data. So yes, if a massive bank, everyone's using the free version, uploading proprietary information, confidential stuff, there's a chance that could be in the next model.
I mean, we understand, all of us, we kind of know in a developing phase of a new technology, it is the wild, wild west, and things like this happen. It's just part of the progression. But I mean, in AI technology terms, since, OpenAI released ChatGPT, it's been light years. It shouldn't be like that anymore. Security is essential, and it should be priority.
I fully agree. And I mean, we've worked in highly secure industries for a long time. We know how important it is that your data is safe, that your data is not trained on, and that you're legally compliant. Because POPIA compliance, not training your data, these things are, as Tash has mentioned, one of our core pillars, that we will not train on data. We do not train on data. And that Spock is not only POPIA, but GDPR compliant. So you can rest assured you are compliant, your data is safe, and you can focus on just getting your work done.
Our experience, being immersed in industry and in enterprise, AI is also a very personal, AI assistant becomes a very personal, like I said, it's being used for therapy and companionship. So it's not just security, but privacy. It's a very, very private thing, guiding and helping and shaping a lot how you think and move forward as well. Value?
So, okay, there's a lot to be said here. Now, what we are seeing in industry is that I'm very glad, well, first of all, I'm very, very glad we have open source. that open source is so powerful. Open source is moving so quickly, because what that's done is create a really competitive market. That's really good for us. That's really good for everyone using AI, because what that means is the cost of serving tokens or the cost of using an AI model is dropping. Models are essentially becoming commodities.
Can I just pause you? I mean, someone like me, I had to like go read through it. I had to physically go to the places to understand, go and spend time at DeepMind or Google or go to a data center or whatever the case may be. But I mean, it is very expensive to train a model.
Yes.
Some go up to $100 million to train a model. And that has to happen on infrastructure, GPUs or TPUs or whatever the case may be. So you train it, but now that it's been trained, the inference is when it uses this training or the mind's been trained, that happens again, a lot of energy and water, because it's a global accessible technology, which a lot of, what's about 700 million people using just ChatGPT. That's expensive. So there is a cost factor to this.
There is a cost factor to this. And I think what we noticed that because of the fact that these models are essentially becoming commodities, and you are very right, pre-training is or building the AI very expensive. And then in all honesty, it's not necessarily the first step. We're focusing a lot on the inference stage and eventually post-training. But the point is, we're focusing on how much value can we provide during inference. In other words, during serving you the model so that you can use it. Not only how can we orchestrate, how can we build the product in such a way where it's as affordable as possible, so that it's as widely accessible as possible, because we are very strong believers in decentralized, get it as broad, get it to everyone. Everyone needs this technology. So a big focus for us was piggyback off of the fact that the models are becoming commodities, use that to our advantage, create these orchestration layers, and build it in such a way that we can provide anyone with the best models, costing less money, but putting them together in such a way where they don't need to pick between ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini. They use Spock and they get all of them.
So essentially, for a fraction of the price, you get like 5 times the value. And that makes high-tech technology accessible. I love this, because that's leveling the playing field. Doesn't matter if you were born in Soweto, Chicago, or Sandton, or Shushanguli. If you've got the brain and the heart and the willingness and the drive to do something and build something for the first time in humanity, it's doable. You can literally do anything. I know it sounds like a bumper sticker, but that's a reality. If I've got a smart device, I've got internet, I've got intelligence to leverage.
And a big thing, building off of that, a big thing we realized was, and this is to the value question as well, is we not only want to get you kickstarted so you're building and you can go and do anything, but we don't want to stop you halfway through. And I think this is something, Tash, in all honesty, we don't actually talk about often enough, is the fact that we don't have rate limits, which means we're not going to prevent you from using something or put you on a hold for a couple of hours or a couple of days until you can use the AI again. We want you to keep building momentum and keep running. So we're not going to rate limit you. And I think that's a massive thing in terms of value that for us is very important. We don't want...
Keep the cadence.
Keep the cadence.
Go, yeah.
No disruption. Keep working. Build on that momentum. You don't have to go wait 48 hours before you can send another deep research or generate another image. Use the AI as much as you need to get your work done.
How does this practically look like in business and enterprise?
So, Tash and I could probably sit here for 2 hours talking about this, because we obviously spend most of our time working with companies, sitting in boardrooms, sitting with the employees, sitting with the different units and the different teams, and trying to understand what their challenges are and how we can help them solve that. So I think before we get into the nitty-gritty, is maybe just to take a step back and look at the bigger picture around possibly even what's the philosophical difference between Spock and a ChatGPT. Is that while a ChatGPT is very consumer-based, consumer-focused, they focus on the individual, the consumers, so they've got the sexy features. We're very focused on the companies, working with...
it is super cool. When Sora came out, I was addicted to just speaking to ChatGPT.
100%. And I think it is incredible to see, but what we did realize is a consumer-based product, it's not necessarily set up to handle the workloads and the type of work that happens in the back office of an enterprise. The admin heavy, burdensome stuff that everyone hates, but no one talks about it. They avoid it like the plague. That is where we realized most companies need help. Can AI help us automate or at least help us move faster on our payroll? Can it help us crunch Excel documents? So just talking about AI in enterprise, I think that's a big thing we need to address up front, is that the most value we've seen, at least in enterprise, is not in the fancy flashy things, but it's the boring back office heavy workloads where AI shines. And as a matter of fact, that's why our multi-model framework's so good, because when you've got massive documents, when you've got this, when you've got that, we're pulling the best model for the task. So you can.
But you're touching on something that's very interesting. See, what you're saying, Louis, is there's multiple models out there, but there's not just this one model that's the AGI, the general artificial intelligence, that's the super intelligence jumping out. There's multiple models, and a lot of them are really good at different type of things. And that's very interesting.
And I think that's something. It's not just that models are essentially becoming commodities because of pricing. It's that we're starting to see them all converge at the top in terms of overall quality. So what's happening now, the labs are post-training, which means they're tweaking their models to focus on kind of specific areas. So we can see Anthropic is focusing on coding. That's their thing, right? Their models are good, very good, but they focus on code. GPT is still very focused on your general-ish consumer. Gemini has many other different advantages. So the models are, in terms of pure performance, becoming kind of similar, but each one specializes. So what we want to do is build you a team of AI specialities, essentially, or specialists, where whatever task you need to do, you will get the best model for it.
It's like orchestrating a symphony. It's an orchestra, all these models, and we're conducting and helping. Like, you don't have to worry about the complexity of models and the competition and the dynamics and the politics. It's just like, you've got a problem, you need to solve it. You want the best eye to back you. That's what we do.
And that's what we've noticed in the companies and enterprises. They don't really care about who's where, who's number one. They've got problems. They need the problem solved. That's it.
I read a report, an MIT report. We don't have to go too much into the report, but what it comes down to, about 95% of AI enterprise pilot programs fail. And a lot of people were jumping on this bandwagon about 95% fail, but no one was really asking the 5% that worked, what's that about? Because that's where we kind of like, our experience was the opposite. 95% of the companies we work with, it works for them. And we've learned a lot. And maybe, Louis, we can just jump, just maybe pull the curtain back on that, of what we've learned in enterprise. Why this report actually revealed something very interesting is that it's not necessarily the models, but the human side, the adoption of AI into companies. It's not just another SaaS product. It's not just another flashy thing you bringing into your company and the IT department has to run. It's more like change management, organizational change management, and you're working with culture. Culture is an unbelievable strong force in your company. How do you address that, bringing AI in?
This is such a multifaceted question, and I think, we don't necessarily have the absolutes in every single answer, but the amount of time we've spent with companies, I feel like we've got a very good understanding of what the reality is on the ground, not what's advertised and sounds incredible. There's a big difference between saying we can automate an entire solution for you and then that actually being implemented. So I think the discrepancy there is what we see in that MIT report. It's we're going to automate workflow A to Z. It's going to do all of these incredible things and it's going to be awesome. But then you kind of build it once, it breaks, it's difficult to maintain, there's too many moving parts. And I mean, we've spent so much time in companies where essentially the first thing we tell them is, let's simplify it. Firstly, is your entire team using an AI assistant? Let's just start there. Let's just get them using the AI. help them understand how to use it, and get them moving a bit quicker. And once we can start, as you say, get that ball rolling, start developing that culture, that's where we see
So you have to start.
Yes.
But a lot of people want to give it as a solution even to their clients, but they themselves can't even understand and use it from foundational phases.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've sat with some CEO who has given me this incredibly, almost, it sounds incredible, the product they want to build for their clients. It sounds fantastic, and it's why wouldn't you want to do that? Can we help them build this? And my question is always, okay, just hold on. Are you as a company using AI in any way, shape, or form? Let's just start there. Are you guys using Spock or any AI assistant? Are you using that first and foremost? If the answer there is no, there's no use in speaking about this pie in the sky, complicated end-to-end system, because you as a company need to understand this is a new paradigm. You can't outsource your future products. You need to, as a company, develop the expertise, build the culture, so you can then build these products and stuff internally for your clients.
I love sometimes when you talk about culture, it's, I once heard someone say, culture is cultivated by the shared lived values. Lived value, not stated value. It's not like we've got these posters against the walls. It's like, this is our values, this is our culture, by the shared lived values of the leadership. And even more so with AI. This is shared lived values, the shared understanding and mindset of this foundational technology, what AI, and how do we use it, how do we think about it. And it's cultivating it over time. It's not an overnight thing.
Yeah, it's not a silver bullet.
Yeah.
I mean, we were both in that conversation with one of the companies where they asked us, should we hire a CIO to help us deploy AI into the company? And the answer there was no. You're probably going to waste 300,000, 400,000, 500,000. I don't know how much they earn a month, a lot of money per month on their salary. And your 45-year-old CEO with 15 years of experience in industry's got the same number of years of experience as a 17-year-old in high school who's been using ChatGPT since it came out. So for us, it wasn't, this is not a tool you deploy into a company, right? This is, as you say, almost a cultural foundation you need to establish in using this new, or building on top of this new paradigm. So the answer there was, no. Don't go hire a CIO. We can work with a team, and by working with them, speaking to people, sitting with the teams, we'll quickly identify those who are curious.
By the way, one of the things, the 5% that succeeded in pilot projects with this report that came out was companies that partnered with companies that specialize in AI. So it's not necessarily one person, one man job. This is partnering with companies, organizations, movements. It's much different. It's a different mindset.
Absolutely. And you can see that because, I mean, it's such a new piece of technology. You need, to an extent, help in terms of understanding how to navigate it. But it's also not necessarily, with that CIO conversation, we essentially said, look, you don't want to hire an individual CIO. We'll work with a team, we'll work with you guys as a company to identify 20 CIOs in the organization, already part of the stack, who are curious, who love AI, who are anyway trying all of these things. We want to take them, empower them, work with them so they can keep bringing that energy, curiosity, and momentum back into their teams, because that's when you see that ball rolling. So you want to turn the entire company into CIOs, or everyone in the company into all CIOs who help deploy, use, and move the AI initiatives forward.
And the efficiency, that is at scale, that's exponential, getting that bedrock. But I think, Louis, if we think about where Spock started and where we are now, I think that's one of the things we quickly realized, that we'll have to offer not just a product. We've got this beautiful platform, this beautiful product. It's very powerful. It's very simplistic in its approach, but it's not where we stop. We are willing then to partner, because we realized we cannot just give the product. We can also come in as a partner, as an AI partner, helping Exco on strategic level, high level, to determine, work out strategy, but then also help permeate and cultivate a culture of AI in the company that's more human orientated.
In hindsight, it sounds obvious, right?
Yeah.
It sounds, I mean, why would we not do that? But that was not our initial idea or even thought. It was honestly, we want to build a product. We want to build an incredibly powerful product. We want to give this to people so they can use it, run with it, and just become 2, 3, 4, 10 times more productive. But again, because we speak to so many people, we heard time and time again from leadership across many different companies, yes, we want the product, we want AI, we know it's important, we've seen the effects thereof, but where do we start? We got that question so many times that we kind of took a step back and realized, hold on, it's not enough to just build a product. We need to understand how we can take it a step or two further and work, as you say, become an AI partner to these organizations, help them throughout the stack, throughout the company, not only just deploy Spock, but ensuring everyone knows how to use Spock first and foremost, get the basics right, get the low-hanging fruit, because if everyone's working 50% more productive, you're raising the floor of the company. So that part for us was, now it seems obvious, but back then it wasn't that obvious. We weren't expecting to be pulled into kind of this AI partnership point of view, but that has happened. And because people ask us, and it's been such an incredible privilege to be able to work with teams, work with companies, learn their challenges, learn their problems, because what we realized is in us helping them through that manner, becoming their AI partner, we also win by getting information back about what their actual problems are. Yeah. We can then improve and build out the product.
Let's do this for a moment. I will kind of embody a change manager, anthropologist that's very concerned about humans in this new AI culture and company. And you look on the machine side, the AI side, and Spock. One of the changes, there's a few change models out there, that's been, studied and implemented in companies. It starts with a sense of urgency. We've sat with, the day before yesterday, I sat with a CEO. It's like, there's a sense of urgency. AI is here. Are we too late? How do we do this? So how do you kind of counter or help or complement with AI, the sense of urgency?
And I think this is where we as a company are incredibly lucky to have yourself, because whilst I come from a technical background, love the technology, love building out the product, what we realized very quickly is it's not that simple just to deploy AI, right? There's a human element to it. It's a difficult initiative to roll out into companies. People are sometimes hesitant. The experience you have in working with companies and organizations has been incredibly useful to understand, okay, hold on. It's a dual approach. It's the machine and the person. How do we bring those together in a way where everyone wins? I mean, the thing we always say is those who are scared of the future are those who don't feel included. So how can we include them? How can we bring them? So just speaking from the machine persona, we know the numbers. We've seen how the technology works. We've seen the effects, black and white. We know what the productivity gains. We know they're there to be made. We want to give the machine, give the product to every employee in the company. Our thesis was, if each employee has the machine, they're working twice as fast, right? But it's not that simple, is it?
No. So we start off with a sense of urgency, because any good CEO, the writing's on the wall and they've got this gut feel. But then the second step in one of these change models is creating a guiding coalition, a team. And I know you spoke on this, this hive mind. So it's not just this one person and deploying this one thing. It's becoming a team thing. It's becoming a hive mind. It's an organizational AI almost. The third step is then having a clear vision. And I think this comes down to communication. Vision is about, Patrick Lencioni once said, CEO, the title should actually be a chief reminding officer. It's just reminding everyone, this is who we are, this is where we're about to go or are going, and reminding them. So communication, speed, vision, and team at this stage, it's just the 3 steps are very important. How does AI play into that?
And what I would say, just on the urgency, we're in this golden period now, right? Now really is the time to act. We've seen enough in the US to be very convinced of not only what AI is capable of, but what those can achieve who adopt it now. It's not just us saying it. Try, go do your own research, and you'll quickly get an answer. So the sense of urgency, not just necessarily in an individual, but in multiple people, is kind of what you want to ignite in the organization. And just quickly to the hive mind, maybe just one almost tip that we've noticed, and something we often tell companies is, don't just go pick the leader of your 5 teams and they're your AI team or they're your hive mind, right? Again, you want to go find those who are curious and have energy and who will bring momentum into their team. So I do always urge people, don't just pick according to the pyramid. Don't just pick according to the old way of doing things. Really try and go out of your way to, in your company, go find those individuals who show natural curiosity to AI and bring them into the fold, bring them into this hive mind, because they'll quickly permeate throughout the whole company. So that's maybe the one thing there. So those are the 2 big aspects, I think, to very briefly touch on.
I think that's very important. I know I'm skipping some of the steps here, but the one thing that I saw you did very, very, very well, and I just like kudos to that, but creating short gains, wins, these goals that's achievable to create traction, quick traction, is just get the product out there, get the people to use it, even if they just play with it. Is one of the major things in change management is this short-term gains, this quick wins. That's very, very important.
The low-hanging fruit. I mean, you, whether you have a board of directors or not, you've got an exco, you need to report, you need to show ROI. What's the return? I'm paying this money. Am I getting something out of it? So a big thing we often push very hard is, let's just hold on. Let's just pick 1 or 2 things, as you often say. Pick the 1 or 2 biggest challenges. Let's set a target. Let's gather data. We can get those quick wins quickly, because if you can save every person in your company an hour a day, not only has the product paid for itself, but 2 or 3 times more than that. So let's pick those simple paths to walk first, get it done, because that's when you see return quickly. And once you see the return quickly, it's much easier to almost reinvest in the initiative. So
it's a short-term sacrifice with a quick win. It sometimes feels counterproductive, but it's actually a little bit of sacrifice, a little bit uncomfortable, but it creates this quick traction. But the long-term gain on this is incredible. I just caution, one of the big threats of creating these, quick traction moments is that people will think they arrived. And that's actually only the beginning of this technology and this new epoch that's in front of us.
So, that's what we've seen is it's not just a short-term investment, it is a longer-term initiative. You need to look at what's the long-term outcome, because I believe it was Imad Mustak, he was the founder of Stability. Very quickly, he actually said, the time is now for companies to take risks, be aggressive in what the future looks like for your business in a world built on the foundation of AI. So we've seen that play out a few times now, and we kind of like to simplify it by saying, AI is not just give everyone AI assistant, right? That's actually phase 1. What do the other phases look like?
So I recently read this, one of the tweets of I recently read this thing on LinkedIn about one of the AI pioneers that said, even if AI stops now where it is, it will still be a disruptional technology for the next decade. But we know that's not the case.
Fully agree. Honestly, most people haven't actually even pushed AI to its limits, haven't actually explored the full potential of technology.
Models as is.
As is right now today.
Yeah.
Even I would say a year or 2 ago's models. Most people haven't actually even pushed that to its limits. And I can promise you, if you do, you'll see why this is serious, why this technology is really, really important to take a look at now. And for that very reason, we said, let's try and put structure around this plan. Let's say, okay, we want to help you understand that. We actually want to help you give you a framework around this technology, how to look at implementing it. Break it up into phases, break it up into chunks where you can use each phase's success to justify and invest in the next phase. And so you move step by step, where phase 1, let's look at giving everyone in the organization an assistant, an AI assistant, Spock. But let's not stop there. it's one thing just giving someone a product. We need to make sure they know how to use the product. So we'll spend time training, upskilling, working with them, helping them understand when to use it, how to use it, etc. Now we've got the company moving a little bit quicker, right? We 10, 20, 30% faster. What's phase 2? Let's look at getting more involved with the organizations and actually kind of having someone from the team head there, be part of the kind of entity for some time, being the AI support staff, right? Mm-hmm. Sitting with each member in the team, helping them look through their day. Where can we deploy AI to move a bit quicker?
And that's kind of like, again, one of our things is human in the loop, keeping the human in the loop in this whole process.
Because it's so, I mean, we've seen this time and time and time again. It's one thing just giving someone something, giving them instruction, because everyone's got these preconceived notions and these habits. And when you go through fundamental change like this, Darshan, you'll know better than anyone, you almost need that human. You need that help to navigate this new way of doing things, this new way of work, because that is essentially what it is. And that's what phase 2 is about. It's saying, look, now that we've gotten past phase 1, the uncomfortable side, and gotten those quick wins, proven the 10, 20, 30, 50% productivity gains, how do we build this new habit? How do we actually help not just you as the leader of the company, but the company as a whole?
Making that stick or institutional in a sense, and the culture. But phase 3, Louis, this is where I get very excited because now we kind of geared in a healthy way, in a sustainable abundance way to what's next for the organization or the company. Are we just amplifying a problem, going quicker in the wrong direction? Are we deploying our own open source models and our own infrastructure? I mean, now suddenly we can come back to what, mentioned the CEOs wanting to give their clients certain AI benefits and products. But now suddenly at phase 3, maybe, if need be, reading the room, what's this new culture of AI look for the company?
And it doesn't necessarily just end at phase 3, because we say phase 1, we say phase 2, but a big thing we've realized is you can't just give every person their own AI assistant, right? Because we've been in conversations where the CEOs will say, look, great, my people are working faster, but if we're moving in the wrong direction, what's the point? So individual AI solving for speed, how do we solve for alignment? So
that's the beauty.
In parallel to phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3, you've got this system that's running, that's helping a company align themselves, helping the organization orientate itself around the objectives set by the board or the CEO. We want to grow X percentage then, whatever. What does that actually mean for the person doing customer success? They hear we want to grow 50% and they just go on with their day, right? That person needs to know, based on the organization, based on the overall entity, if you follow up with your leads a little bit quicker, this is how you contribute, this is how we win moving forward. So I don't want to get too deep into the organizational AI, call it a product or approach we're taking, but fundamentally, we want to distribute information faster throughout an organization. We want to make sure the information is more accurate. Each person receives it in a way they understand and understand what their role is in moving forward. And that organizational AI is incredibly exciting because we've not seen that yet.
So you can come down to a granular level, like almost at the atom of the organization, and you can micromanage, but not let it feel like macro, but empowering and inspirational. But it's a two-way street of communication, much quicker, where this hive mind, this organizational mastermind at higher level understand where the mistakes are made, where we can iterate, fail fast, fail forward, fail often to come to the best possible outcome. It almost sounds science fiction.
It does.
I see a Doctor Who. So
it does. I mean, we're still struggling to come to grips with having my own AI assistant. Now we're talking about an AI assistant for the overall company. What does that even mean?
Yeah.
Is it ingesting all the data? What is it doing? Is it helping structure the system? It does sound science fiction, but we've worked with enough companies to understand how to approach this in a simple way, step by step, and make sure that at the end of the day, we're keeping them aligned, keeping them lean, keep them moving quickly. And the most important thing is, throughout all these phases, throughout implementing the parallel system, we can actually show hard data. What are the results? of these initiatives. You're not just blindly throwing money to a problem and hoping it solves itself. We're taking a systematic approach with data.
It's not just anecdotal, it's realistic, it's real hardcore facts.
Absolutely data-driven, objective, quantitative in how we want to approach this. Not just the concept of individual-based AI for each employee, but organizational AI. Let's marry those two. Let's solve for speed, which we're busy. Let's solve for alignment.